Hey, hey, hey! This is Best Practices Unveiled. This podcast is a judgment-free zone where we will have real open conversations about various topics. Our objective is simple yet profound. We're going to provide you listeners with valuable insights and wisdom from engaging guests and a passionate host. Best practices are not a quick fix. They represent a lifelong journey of growth, learning, and continuous improvement. We are creating a space that embraces inclusivity and shared experiences, offering something for everyone. Stay tuned. Hello, welcome. Thank you for joining us today. Today, we have another special treat. It's always a treat on this platform. But today we have Lori Brinson, and we're going to be talking about business. We're going to be talking about finances. We're going to be talking about taxes. Really good information for entrepreneurs starting or current business owners, small, large. It's going to be very impactful. So Lori is a native of Leesburg, Florida. She began her education at the Florida State University with a bachelor's degree in accounting. She later received a master's in accounting and a master's in business administration, public administration from the University of Phoenix. Lori received the designation of Certified Government Finance Officer in 2011. Wow. And recently licensed as a Certified Public Accountant, CPA, in the state of Florida in 2023. That's just a tip of what she has been up to. Welcome, Lori. Thanks for joining us today.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
No problem. Give us a little bit more of a background as far as what got you into the field of working those numbers.
Yeah. I've always known I wanted to be an accountant. My father actually had his own business for over 30 years in Leesburg. And as a child, he allowed me to sit in his office. And my mom would come and show me how to balance the checkbook. She would show me how to write up invoices, write up quotes. And my dad taught me how to do sales orders. He taught me how to do inventory, counting inventory at 13, 14 years old.
Wow.
So middle school, going into high school, I was already doing inventory. I was already counting things. And I was already doing green bar sheets back then. So we're talking about early 80s. So I always knew I wanted to do accounting. So when I got to high school, I had an opportunity to take some accounting classes. And I also always knew I wanted to go to Florida State University. So once I got accepted at FSU, I majored in accounting, and the rest is history from there. I enjoy working with numbers, believe it or not.
Wow.
So I enjoy that. And my dad gave me that opportunity to learn and see how a business should be run. He also taught me customer service and how to take care of your customers. Do what you say you're going to do.
They don't do that anymore.
No. He was a firm believer in do what you say you're going to do. And if you have something come up that you can't do, communicate, call the people, call the customer,
right.
Let them know. So he taught me some of those basics even as a teenager. So my love for accounting and business grew from there. And so when I got to college, I knew I wanted to be an accountant.
That is amazing. And it's good that you had the background or the foundation from an early age to understand the importance of keeping all the numbers in line.
Mm-hmm. Yes. And learning what's important and learning how to take care of your customers.
Right.
Learn that from him early. So it was important.
That's good. And it carried you a long way.
Yes.
Yes, it has.
Yes, it has. I know good customer service and I know bad customer service.
Right.
And I can appreciate the lessons of if you tell someone you're going to do something, or if you give someone a deadline or timeline, stick to that timeline. Your word is everything.
Right.
He was big on word.
And everything's happened. We get it, you know. Mm-hmm. So you may not be able to follow through at that time, but then follow up.
Communicate.
Yeah, say what it is. Yeah, they don't do that nowadays.
No. Communication can clear up a lot of things.
Yes.
You know, you can
absolutely.
have the best intentions, but like you said, things happen. Life happens.
Right.
Emergencies come up. It just takes 2 minutes to either pick up the phone or send a message and say, hey, I know I told you tomorrow, but are you okay with Friday? Are you okay with Monday?
Right.
Just a few minutes.
Right. Right.
To keep that honor, keep your word, keep commitment.
Right.
Commitment is,
And it's about integrity.
yes.
Integrity goes
Yes,
a long way.
it really
I'm big
does.
on integrity.
It really does.
Yes.
It really does.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, I appreciate you sharing that. That's very valid. I feel like there's, definitely been a disconnect in regards to how we communicate nowadays, and we can blame it on a lot of reasons, right?
Mm-hmm.
But basically, it's just about change,
right?
And I think that we make the choice on how we want to interact with, one another,
right?
So it's good that you still have that mindfulness about, keeping your word.
Right. And it's not just business, that can go into personal.
Absolutely.
Keeping your word.
Absolutely.
Integrity.
Yes.
It could go a long way.
Yeah. I appreciate that. I want to share a story, and I just want to say to my listeners that I think this segment here is important to keep in mind that we all start at some place when we're starting our practices, our businesses, or what have you. I think I started my business. I have been in business probably about 8, 9 years. And I wanted to buy a piece of property, an additional, piece of property. And I found a lender, I found a realtor, and, they come in a package. And she had been showing me places and everything. And I never heard from the lender. And I was like, hey, you showing me all these places. I don't even know, what I'm going to qualify for. My credit score was good.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, I'd be able to get anything, I want. What's going on? I got a phone call from the lender because I'm putting pressure now on the realtor, like, what's going on? Your girl flaking on me. And she called me and she was like, Annette, and I was like, yes. She said, do you have your taxes handy? And I was like, yeah. I went right to my file. Yep, I got them. She said, can you open it up for me and go to line so and so? So I was like, yeah, I'm there. She said, what does that number say? I was like, 19. So she said, yeah, that's what your income is. So you don't qualify for. Mm-hmm. I was like, what? Mm-hmm. What do you mean I don't qualify? She said, yeah, because what you small business people like to do is write everything off. Mm-hmm. So if you're writing everything off, you're not showing any income.
Right.
So you have debt. Your income's data. Yeah. Mm-hmm. You talking about first? I was so embarrassed.
Yeah.
I was like, oh my goodness.
Yeah.
So that was a big, big lesson for me. I was on the phone calling my other peers, in the field, like, girl, do you do this, that, and the third? Like, we got to tighten up on this, And I just wasn't educated on that process.
Right.
I got into the business for several reasons, and it wasn't until later on that I got into the business,
right,
and how it really should function,
right,
and how it would, add longevity or, financial sustainability.
Mm-hmm. That's it.
Yes,
right. Yes. Right. And it's so important to have that information because, like she said, small businesses, a lot of people get in the habit of writing off everything, and for your taxes. But then where's your financial statements?
Right.
Where's your revenue coming from? Right. That's a different set of books.
And paying yourself. I was like, what? This is my money.
Yes.
Paying myself. Yes. What you mean I am paying myself? Swipe. Oh my gosh. Yes. So many lessons. So let's start with some of the basics. Mm-hmm. What are some common tax mistakes small business owners make? And how do we avoid them other than what I just shared?
Yes, that's one of them,
right?
That's one of them. But I think from the very beginning, not registering properly. So a lot of small businesses, they see, maybe they see their cousin or their aunt or someone else has a business. So I can do that. You have to register. You have to be registered with the state of Florida to be a legit business and knowing how to register. Are you going to be a sole proprietor? Are you going to be an LLC? Do you want to do a partnership? Do you want to be an S-Corp? Do you want to be a corporation? If you do not even know what those things are, you need to find out so that you register properly. That affects how you file your taxes.
Can you touch on each of those? You know, I was going to say
that. So most common freelancers or people that just getting started, they're usually sole proprietors. What I mean by that is they haven't set up as a corporation or a small corp, which is like an S-Corp. They're just maybe making money on the side.
Okay.
And a lot of that is going to just go through their personal tax return, just a 1040, just your basic tax return. So that extra income is other income on the tax return. Okay, that's not a big deal. That's really, you just getting a feel for the business. Okay. Maybe you don't have something set up full time yet. The next step up from that would be like a LLC, limited liability corporation. A limited liability corporation, you're going to have an actual additional schedule in that tax return. You're still only going to have one tax return, just your 1040, your basic 1040, but you're going to have a Schedule C. That Schedule C, you're going to list your income and your expenses. It's also called a profit and loss statement. That is a step up from just being a sole proprietor and having other income. That Schedule C has to be filed with your 1040. If you do not know how to do that, that's where getting an accountant involved to make sure you file properly. An LLC has to be registered on the state of Florida website. You have to go to sunbiz.org, Florida Department of Corporations, register the name. The next step is going to IRS website, getting an EIN or federal ID number. You have to do that. That federal ID number becomes a part of your annual report that has to be done annually. So it's definitely a step up from just being a sole proprietor.
Yes.
And the S-Corp, that's another step up. A S-Corp, they have what's called an 1120S, which is another tax return. That's a tax form that has to be filed just for the S-Corp. And it's called an 1120S. The 1120S has other schedules. They have to be included on your personal tax return. So now you got a corporate tax return that has to be done, and you got your personal tax return to be done. Someone who is not in accounting probably could not complete those forms on their own. Again, if you're going to take that next step up, you need to involve an accountant. Not just a tax preparer, an accountant, preferably a CPA. CPAs can be expensive, I understand that, but at least get an accountant. Your tax preparer that sets up 3 or 4 months out of the year is probably okay maybe that first year, but I wouldn't even do it the first year because you need someone who can set you up and walk you through the process of being a business owner.
Right.
So a corporation, that's a whole different level. You have to have a board. You have to have annual meetings. You have to do all of that. You have to file 1120 plus your tax return. You get taxed on the corporation and you get taxed on your personal tax return.
Oh.
So that's a whole nother level. You may need to get an attorney involved to get your corporation set up properly, to make sure your shares, if you're going to be public, it's another level. And that requires planning. That requires having a business plan. That requires getting people involved to be on your board. It's another level. Okay. It's another level. But I would say it's possible if you have the right people on your team. You got to have the right people on your team. So one of the biggest mistakes is not setting up properly, getting the state of Florida registration, getting the federal EIN number, having all those things. And then if you're going to, when you first start up, you also need to keep track of expenses. That's a big mistake too. Startup expenses can be written off as a tax deduction. So all those filings you have to do, you have to pay the state of Florida for that filing. You don't have to pay the IRS for the EIN, but you do have to pay the state of Florida for that initial filing.
And every year after.
And every year after. Those are expenses that can be deducted as business expenses.
Right, absolutely.
If you have a place that you're renting, those are business expenses. If you had to pay a deposit up front, all those things are business expenses that a lot of small businesses, when they first start, they don't even think about it.
Yeah.
Those are all deductible expenses up front. And then the other thing, if you're going to have employees or if you're going to have contractors, we talked about that. Knowing the difference of I have these people coming in that's going to be helping me get my business started. Are they contractors? Are they employees?
Mm-hmm.
That makes a difference for them when they get ready to file at the end of the year.
Right.
So if you hand all of these employees 1099s, they now owe taxes. And that needs to be explained up front. And if you're giving them a schedule, you're telling them what time to come in, you're giving them assignments, those are employees. So knowing the difference
Wow.
is helpful up front, because if you are paying them as employees, not only is federal withholding coming out of their check, but Medicare and Social Security is too, which means you have to match that. And if you don't have that in the budget, that's something you got to think about before you hire these people and realize that, I just got a letter from the IRS, that type stuff. So those are the things that small businesses can get themselves in trouble with if they don't properly plan when they first get started and keep track of those things and know how they want to file and know what type of business they want to set up.
Wow, that's a lot. That's a lot. I think that most of us just want the independence, of having that freedom to do your own thing.
Mm-hmm.
Some probably do and are educated on the business piece, but most just dive in and, how we all experience and learn as we go along.
And that's okay too. But when you learn better, you should do better.
Absolutely.
You should do better. When you're talking about getting into taxes, IRS is not our friend.
At all. At all.
So when you learn better, you have to do better. You really do.
Yeah. I know for me, and I think many other entrepreneurs, we dread the tax season. Like now, all my parents are calling me. They want their 1099. They want their statements. And I'm like, honey, I'm not impressed. I'm not impressed.
Yeah.
What simple habits or strategies can entrepreneurs implement throughout the year to make tax filing less stressful?
I suggest all of the small businesses that I deal with find a way to track your expenses. You have to track your expenses, whether that's in a filing system, old school, where every receipt you get, every invoice bill you get, you put it in a file and organize the file cap, or if you use an Excel spreadsheet, that's fine too.
I hate them things.
Accountants love them. We love them.
Oh my gosh.
If you don't want to do Excel, there are apps out there now.
That's what I was going to ask you.
There are apps. There are apps that will track all those expenses.
Really?
Outside of QuickBooks Online, outside of FreshBooks, Gusto, all those accounting systems that are made for small businesses, you can use those, and you can have an accountant that can just dial in, update your stuff for you, run you some reports, or you can get an app. But with the app, you need a separate bank account. So that's the other thing. Having a separate bank account for just business.
Yes.
All the deposits need to go in there. All the expenses need to go in there. If you have a separate bank account, you've just eliminated the majority of the problems that accountants have with small businesses. Trying to figure out what is this in this account.
Right.
If all of it is business related,
you don't have to worry about it.
You don't have to worry about it, because that eliminates a lot of time that you would pay an accountant to fix it, because everything in there is business related. And if you connect it to an app, it's going to sort those expenses for you. So at the end of the year, you just export that information to the accountant. It saves so much time, saves you money, and aside for the separate bank account, pay apps. So a lot of small businesses are using Zelle and Cash App. That's okay to a certain extent.
Right.
Eventually, you should grow out of that.
Mm-hmm.
But in the beginning, I can understand. It's an easier way to get paid. It's a quicker way to get paid. But you still have to reconcile that. And what I mean by reconcile is if you're getting Zelles and Cash Apps and it doesn't have what it's for, again, that's a headache to figure out at the end of the year. Well, I think that was for this, or I think that's what. How are you going to have a financial statement that you may want to take to the bank? And the bank said, well, okay, well, just send us your bank statements, because they're going to ask for the bank statement. They're going to look at that and say, well, what is this?
What is this for? Yeah.
How do we know that's not personal?
Right.
You're trying to make it appear you have all this revenue coming in. How do we know that's not personal? It says Zelle. It says Cash App. So if you're going to use the Zelles and the Cash Apps and Venmo, you need to go back and reconcile those items either in a spreadsheet or on the bank statement, label what it is, what is this for? Was this for a service? Was this for a product? Whatever you're doing. Or you go with Square where you can create invoices, or you go with a PayPal where you can create invoices. Mm-hmm. Those type systems allow you to create an invoice so you know what you're selling, you know what you're getting paid for.
Right.
So Zelle and Cash App, okay, in the beginning, yes, but as you grow, as you create new services for revenue, you need a better way of tracking, a better system, and it make it so much easier at the end of the year. You could just, whether it's QuickBooks or Gusto, I can just ask them, send me the file. Or I can dial in on QuickBooks and get the file. It gives me all the revenues, gives me all the expenses, it's all in one bank account. That stuff updates. I can press a button and just update it.
Yeah.
It makes it so much easier.
I gotta get better.
And I have some old school ones that just send me a file folder and it's got all the invoices, all the expenses for the year. Mm-hmm. And I sit and type them all in Excel.
Right.
But at least it's in one place, it's organized.
Right.
So, you know, either way, you gotta keep track of your expenses, and that separate bank account is everything.
Yes.
It's everything. And as you grow, you probably need to bring on a bookkeeper. If you don't have the money to bring on a bookkeeper, then you're going to have to invest in something like a QuickBooks or Gusto. That will do it for you.
I know a few people who actually had or have small businesses still, and they did hire a bookkeeper and end up owing IRS. I mean, it was a hot mess, you know. Yeah. So even with that, it's still not 100% that it's going to be accuracy, you know.
And as complicated as things can get now, an accountant versus a bookkeeper makes a difference. It really does. And I know people don't necessarily like to spend that kind of money, but in the long run, you're saving money.
Right.
Because once your books are together, your items are set up correctly in an accounting system, you're going to save money in the long run anyway. Right. Because you can go and say, hey, can you send me quarterly reports of what I'm making, what I'm spending? And that gives you an opportunity as the manager of your business, not to spend time keying in and keeping track of invoices. You're spending time looking at, where am I spending my money at?
Right, right.
And you can make those tweaks during the year so that when you do file your taxes, it's no surprise. You know what you made and you know where your expenses were. So it's not much of a surprise because you've had someone keeping track of it for you all year.
Right.
So in the long run, you'll save money. In the beginning up front, it might hurt a little bit. Right. It might hurt a little bit, but there's something to be said about someone who is degreed and certified over someone who's just doing bookkeeping on the side.
Right, I agree. So with the accounting process, if a small business owner decided, I'm going to get an accountant, you would set them up in the beginning and then kind of just monitor their spending and making sure that everything is in the correct bucket. And
it depends on the need.
Okay.
I've had people that have contacted me in the past that they need to be set up. They can't afford necessarily monthly services in the beginning because it can be expensive.
Right.
So they want me to get them set up and get them trained on how to run their updates in QuickBooks.
Okay.
So, for example, I have a young man who has his own business. He's a car detailing business. And he's gone from handing me the binder of all the invoices, which at the end of the year costs him a lot of money because I have to charge him by the hour, versus converting him to QuickBooks. So we went to his house. He got the QuickBooks Online subscription, charges him, $35, $40 a month. Mm-hmm. And he has a bank account where all his business stuff is in one bank account. I sit down with him. I showed him how to connect the bank account to QuickBooks. We ran the software. It pulled in all his expenses. It pulled in all his revenues for all his statements back to as far back as we wanted to go. And from there, I sat down and I showed him how you code those expenses. And then the sweet thing about QuickBooks, not to plug QuickBooks, but that's what we were working in.
Right.
It recognized that we were keying the same thing to the same account. So it asked, do you want all of these to go there? Yes. Went through the whole year and pulled them all into the right account.
Wow.
Got to the next one, Office Depot or Staples or whatever it may be. You keep coding it off spots. Would you like this to continue? Pull them all in.
Okay.
So by the time we got done and I showed it to him, he was like, oh, that's pretty neat. We had done a whole quarter in a few minutes.
Wow.
And so he was able to go in the reports that are already created in there, standard reports, run a profit and loss. And he was able to see all his revenues and all his expenses and what his net was. That saved him money. He's only paying, what, $35, $40 a month.
Right.
Versus paying me anywhere from $150, $175 an hour at the end of the year.
Wow.
So it was worth it. And he's not a bookkeeper. He's not an accountant.
Right.
But he has the time to do that versus the end of the year, getting a $12 or $800 bill from me. And he just spent $40 a month. And just every now and then, like I told him, once a week or once every 2 weeks, go in and just run it so it updates. It updates, he looks at it, and it tells you the ones that aren't coded. And if he does not understand where to code it, it allows him to say, ask my accountant. It'll send me an email.
Really?
It sends me an email. I go in, look at it, and say, oh, this needs to go over there. That's it. So to me, it's worth it for a small business that, he cannot afford to go and get a full-time bookkeeper.
Right.
But he can take the time to say, you know what? This is going to help me at year end.
Right.
I can go in and run this. And if I have questions, it can send it to her and let her help me. Okay. So it's worth it.
Yeah.
Definitely worth it.
It's the time for me. It is the time.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. So for those just starting, for entrepreneurs that's just starting, what are key tax forms or registrations they should be aware of and to stay in compliant? I know we talked about registering, but are there any other forms or anything that?
Yeah, outside of somebiz.org, which is the Florida Department Corporation, there's also the IRS form, which is really not a form, it's more of a website to get the EIN.
Okay.
And then annually doing the annual report, which is still on Florida Department Corporation, somebiz.org. That needs to be done. And if they have employees, getting the W-4s when they hire them, getting the I-9 done when they hire them, so that in the year they can give them a W-2. That's two different forms.
I didn't know that. So what now?
When you hire a new employee, they have to fill out a W-4.
Okay.
And that W-4 is used to get the information you need for at the end of the year to give them their W-2. Okay. So if you have contracted employees, or not employees, but contracted providers who receive a 1099, you have to have a completed W-9. That's supposed to be done when they're brought on. So if you have a new contractor come in, there is a form W-9 that they must complete that gives you the information of either an EIN to pay them or a social security number to pay them. And on that form, they acknowledge that they are contracted and that any taxes they will be responsible for. It is on the form. So they need to fill that out when you bring them on as a contractor. And that form is usually missing.
I wonder if Gusto sends that out, because I have had contractors and I set them up through, the pay services I use. But I didn't know. So do they?
They should be doing. If they're the ones issuing the 1099, then they have to have that form on file.
Okay, I'm gonna go back and check now that you
Yes,
because I didn't even know that.
Yes, that's required.
See,
that's required.
Education. Okay. You said I-9. So the I-9.
The W-9 is for contractors.
Right.
The W-4 is for employees. But if they're an employee, you also have to do the I-9, which is the one that you have to have a state of Florida ID or some type of government issued ID, a social security number where you have to look at this. That's what the I-9 is.
Okay.
You have to verify. And then some companies use the e-verify. Yeah.
A lot of steps.
Yes, it's a lot of steps.
Y'all getting this? Y'all writing this down? Okay, let's talk about audits. What are some red flags that could trigger? Oh, nobody wants the IRS knocking at their door. Nobody wants them letters coming to the house. How can we avoid that?
There is no way to 100% avoid it because the IRS can audit whoever they want. But
you just like pick people sometimes.
You can get a random audit. It's not unheard of. Okay. But some of the red flags is too many miscellaneous deductions. Miscellaneous deductions. Those deductions that you don't know where to put them on the form. So you stick it in miscellaneous, or if you have financials that you're doing on your own and you're not sure how to, so you put it in miscellaneous. Oh, I've seen it. I've seen it all.
Are you serious?
Put it in miscellaneous, and so you have this. You may have only made 18, 19,000 after deductions, but you got 10,000 in miscellaneous deductions. That is a red flag. I'm using small numbers, but I've seen larger numbers.
Are you serious?
Miscellaneous is not, no. If it's that hard to figure out, if it belongs on there, it probably doesn't belong on there. Too many miscellaneous deductions, too many personal deductions mixed in with business. That's another red flag. Too many personal deductions. Some people want to write off everything to the business.
Right.
No, you do that, you're going to have red flags. I personally will not do a tax return if someone cannot tell me what I'm looking at. I just won't do it. You can take that to someone else. It's not worth me risking my whole career and end up in an IRS audit. And of course, the person wants to blame everything on the accountant. Well, I hired someone and she did it.
Right.
So I just won't do it. Too many personal deductions. If you can't tell me what this $1,250 expense to the Bahamas was, I am not going to put that in a travel business expense.
Right.
If you cannot tell me the business purpose for going to the Bahamas.
Right.
It's things like that just, and some people, they're bold. I went there and I talked to somebody about my business.
Yeah.
Okay.
They come back with a business card.
Yeah. What that mean? Or some lavish meals that included a bar and you're turning that in as a business expense and you want meals and entertainment deductions. Too many meals and entertainment deductions. I've seen that too. You do not get 100% of that.
Right.
So those things, they just kind of like, and the other thing is not claiming all business income. And that is one that is really hard for small businesses. You know, especially when they first get started and they may have business on the side or they may be doing jobs on the side and someone pay them cash. And that doesn't get tracked anywhere.
Right.
In the beginning, you could probably get away with that. But if you get 1099s, 1099 miscellaneous, 1099s NECs, which are non-employee compensation, 1099s miscellaneous, and 1099s NEC, you need to be including those on your tax returns.
Oh my God, so much inclusiveness.
Yes. And the reason I say that, if you continue to not include those 1099 miscellaneous or 1099 NECs, the company that issued them to you, they've already reported that to the IRS electronically.
Yes. Sure has to match.
Yeah. So you might not get caught this year. You might not get caught next year. But that third year, you might get a letter. Yeah. It's easy to just say, it wasn't that much. But over time, it
adds up.
Yes. So you're not including income that you did receive, and the IRS already knows about it. So the best thing to do is to go ahead and include it, or do an amended return and include it. And I know people don't like to do amended returns, but IRS already knows about it. So you are just creating red flags for yourself by not including all your income.
And they want to know everything. They want to know everything. And they do know everything.
Yeah.
They find out.
They find out eventually.
Yeah,
It won't be. They're very behind.
Yeah, but over time.
But over time,
yeah,
and you'll get a letter,
mm-hmm.
and then you'll get a second letter. And I tell all my people that get these letters, by the time you get that third letter, they could be taking your bank account, and there is nothing anyone can do for you once they take your bank account.
That's true, and it seems like when that is, I've seen it happen to a couple of people. It's like people fall back from you. They don't even, I can't help you. Something. Yeah. They don't want to mess with the IRS.
No.
Because they will change your life overnight.
It will.
You go in your bank account and think you got money to pay your mortgage, your rent, whatever, and it's gone.
Everything's gone. The bank cannot help you.
That's crazy.
It is. It's not, and for me, it's not worth it. It's not worth it. You get a 1099 for $900, $800. Go ahead and include it. It's not going to change your tax that much. Just include it. But over time, you get one for $900, you get one for $1,200, you get one for $800, and you just don't include it. It's not worth the penalty and the interest that you're going to pay for avoiding tax. It's not worth it.
Voiding tax. See how she say that? Voiding tax.
Voiding tax.
Tax every goddamn thing. Tax everything. Oh my God.
Yes.
Well, thank you for that.
Yes.
So with the rise of digital businesses and side hustles, how should independent contractors and freelancers approach taxes differently from traditional business owners? Is there a difference?
I would say no, there is no difference. They still need to track expenses and their startup expenses, whether that's subscriptions to certain services to do their platforms. They still need to track those expenses. They still need to go and set up properly. Are you going to be an LLC? Do you have a partnership with someone? You still need to set up. You still need to have an EIN. You still need those things. So it's really no different. Most time, people in those tech businesses or freelancers and things like that, they're pretty tech savvy. So get an app. Use an app.
Right.
You do not have to try to figure it out. Just use an app. Connect that and still have a separate bank account. And otherwise, it's no different.
So when I started Best Practices and I wanted to establish it as a second business, and I thought I needed a new EIN, but when I tried to go apply for one, they wouldn't do it. So when I called to speak with someone, they said that because it was at the same address, that it would just fall under the same EIN.
That's possible. It depends on how your main business is set up. If your main business is already an LLC, this can just be a branch under that, like a subsidiary.
Okay.
Because you're one person, so you have one social. You're working under one EIN. This could just be another service or another product offered under your main business.
Okay.
You don't have to have multiples.
Okay. Because I was like, I want to make sure I'm doing this right. You know?
No, and when you file your taxes, you just make sure that whatever revenues or whatever that you have, that you include it under that EIN.
Okay.
That's all they're worried about.
Yeah, they just want their money.
Yes.
They don't care nothing about nothing else. Pay them people their money.
And that doesn't keep you from having a DBA.
Right.
So you can have the main business, which is Kids R Us.
Right.
And then you have Best Practices, Kids R Us doing business as Best Practices.
Right.
So you can claim that name with the state of Florida. So nobody else can take that name.
Mm-hmm.
You can still do that.
Okay. Thank you, Lori. So what's a common tax myth you hear all the time that you wish people would stop believing?
Believe it or not, the one that I hear the most often is people think that they can just go buy these luxury vehicles and write it all off to the business.
Yeah, that's my.
Yes, I know a lot of people who try that. And it's just like, that's not really how it works.
How does it work?
It doesn't really work that way. I mean,
educate us today.
It's nice to have a nice vehicle and be able to make the payments because you have a job.
Right.
But to say, I'm just going to go buy this brand new Range Rover, a $90,000 vehicle off my $40,000 a year job business.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it does not add up.
No, and it's a red flag.
Mm-hmm.
So I try to tell people, we go through the questions that I would go through in a tax return. Is this your only vehicle? Do you use this vehicle outside of work?
Right.
Do you use this vehicle to transport people? Do you use this vehicle solely for business purposes? Do you got to go through all those questions and see what those answers look like to say, yes, this is a business deduction, or it's not. For example, you have a daycare, but you have also picked up kids, transported kids, do all those things in your vehicle.
Right.
You can use mileage or you can use gas as a deduction. Why? Because you do use that vehicle for business.
Right.
What people try to do is take the whole car payment and pay the car payment out of the business and use that as a business deduction year round. If that vehicle is used for personal outside of the business, it's going to be really hard to justify because you're using it for personal and business. It's not like you park it after hours.
Right. Now, if you had just a specific van, like my van I just had just for daycare, and that's something different.
That's a business. That's a business vehicle. Right. That is the true definition of a business vehicle.
Right.
Otherwise, if you're picking up kids in your personal vehicle and transporting them for the daycare, you can get your mileage or you can get your gas.
Right.
Which there's no issue with that because you did use it for business.
Right.
But outside that van, if that van is parked and now you're in your personal vehicle, to try to get a tax deduction and say, I'm going to let my business pay for my new Range Rover and I'm going to use that as a business deduction. And then your profit and loss statement shows you only made $18,000, $19,000 this year, but you have a $90,000 vehicle. How is that?
Right.
It just don't make sense.
People don't think about that.
No, they don't.
Trying to get over
They don't. Now, you do have larger corporations who have vehicles that they purchase for their executives.
Right.
That's justified. The company bought those for the executives to drive for their corporation.
Absolutely.
But when you got a business that's not even on that level, it's hard to justify. And so I hear it all the time. And the other one is they want to claim deductions for a room in their house, but you don't have a home business and you don't work from home. Yeah, wow. So that one's a little... How?
It's a little suspect too.
It's a little suspect too. It's like, well, can I get a house deduction? I'm like, but you don't work from home. You don't work from home.
And once again, if you don't have that established EIN or business to work from home, how are you going to claim that space?
Yeah, it's kind of hard it just don't add up. So you really don't even have to be an accountant or CPA, other than the fact that you're listening to other people talking about, well, I get a deduction from my home. But do they work from home?
Right.
Is their computer sitting in an office that they use specifically for business?
Right.
That matters. If my computer, my laptop, my desk, and everything is in a specific room, that room is not used for daycare. That room is not used for other kids. That room is not used as a guest room. That room is not used for, anything other than I go in there and I work.
I do my work, right?
Yes, I can get a business deduction from my office at home. But if I'm a painter full time and I go around and do side jobs and handyman work, it's kind of hard to justify a home office.
Right.
When I don't work in the house.
You're working outside of the house.
Yes.
Servicing others.
Yes.
Yes.
But they see other people talking about this home office deduction that they assume that they can have that too. So yeah, that's the other one.
So what advice would you give the audience? Because we're about to take a left turn here.
Yeah. So I would say being a small business owner or a business owner is not for the faint at heart. It has its advantages and it has its disadvantages. It can be stressful. It can be a heavy load because if you have staff that you're paying for, you got to pay them.
Yes.
And even when the ends aren't meeting, you still
So
have to pay them.
Oh,
and so that's a lot to carry. And then you have to keep up with, in your field, like you have, continuing education, you have certifications, you have licenses. There's a lot of things that go into having a business.
Yes.
So it's not for the faint at heart, but a word of advice would be pay yourself. And you and I've had this conversation. I watched my dad work for years for himself after leaving Sears and not pay himself. So fast forward 20 years in, he got diagnosed with cancer and he ended up having to go out on disability. Well, when you're working for yourself, who's paying disability?
Right.
So he had to tap into Social Security. And because he had not been paying himself for almost 20 years, he had not enough Social Security credits to even really get a real check. Same thing with retirement. He went back to work. He worked for another 8-9 years. Again, cancer took him out and he went back home and no retirement.
Right.
So I would say for small business owners, I don't care if you pay yourself $300 a week, $400 a week. Figure out a number you can afford. From that money, put money into a retirement plan. Get an SCP, which is for self-employed, or get an IRA or a Roth and start putting that money away. If that's the only reason why you pay yourself, fine. But do that. Take out Social Security, Medicare, have it sent in. If you need to contact like an ADP or Paychecks to do that for you, do that. But it's worth it in the long run. It's worth it because now you have retirement set up. You're getting those Social Security credits if you ever have to go out on disability. And so you're not stuck with trying to figure out, you have this major life change, major illness hit you. Life happens.
Absolutely.
Life happens.
Absolutely. You got to be prepared for it.
You got to be prepared for it.
Yeah.
So having a retirement plan as well as having something out there in the event you have to tap into Social Security, it can be life-saving.
Yes.
Yeah,
that's a really, really good piece of advice. And again, I know for myself, again, I got into the business for a lot of reasons, but as you go along, you grow and you learn best practices.
Mm-hmm.
I still know people who are in the business and have been for years, and they don't even have an EIN. They don't have, any preparation for what's next. I don't want to be in my late 60s and 70s doing childcare because I have to.
Right.
If it's something that I'm going to continue to do, it's because this is a choice that I've made, but I'm financially set that if I need to step away, or I think that I've put enough money into my Social Security where I will be okay. And even with that, you have to budget yourself because the lifestyle is going to be different.
Yes, much different. Much different. And even with that money doesn't come right away, even if you were to file disability. So having 3 to 6 months of expenses for your business set aside in a savings account somewhere is also smart. Because even if you have an emergency, you're not going to be able to tap into that right now.
Yes.
It's going to take a minute for that money to come. So having 3 to 6 months saved in a savings for your business. And here in Florida, we know this last year with the multiple hurricane seasons, it destroyed so many businesses.
Yes, it did.
And they still waiting on FEMA.
Yeah.
So it's just smart to kind of sit down and have that plan. The first couple of years in a new business is hard. You don't really make any money.
Right.
But after you get over that hump, it's time to start strategizing. Like, how can I do 3 months? Okay, I get 3 months set aside. Okay, now let's try for another 3 months and have 6 months set aside. Okay, now let's focus on the retirement. Let's make sure we got, that money we were putting together for a rainy day fund. Might be able to put some more money over into a Roth or IRA or something like that. So that when you do turn 62, 64, 65, you're not still having to work.
Right, absolutely. And I think it's important, that piece in regards to setting up a few months of a rainy day fund, because if you do invest your money in a SEP or 401k or something like that, and you go to try to take that money out, you're going to be penalized.
Yes. 10%.
Yeah.
If you're not old enough, and then tax. You're gonna be taxed another 10%. So yes, you get hit twice.
Right. People don't realize that.
Yeah.
They want to go in and they want to buy their first house. Oh, I'll just go into my 401k. They want to get a new car. Oh, I'll just go into my 401k. It's like it's a savings account. No, where's your savings?
Right.
Where's your surplus?
Right. Some type of rainy day.
Yeah.
Some type. Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for all of this good information. We're going to take a left turn here because not only is Lori certified CPA and expert on taxes, I'm going to say, she started a nonprofit called Victory Over Violence of Florida Incorporated. So I'm going to let her speak on that and kind of give us some insight as to what made her go that route. But this is something that is, I know we're doing a switch here, but I just wanted to, as opposed to us breaking this up into 2 segments, the bosses that we are decided to collaborate and get it done in one sitting. So this is dear to my heart because I always share with, sometimes with my parents in the business that I'm in servicing. We all have a story, a backstory.
Right.
And sometimes when my mothers come in, they're sharing their stories, they're sharing, lifing. And I always say I can relate, and I have empathy, and I have compassion for them because I've been each one of them at some point in time in my life. You know what I mean?
Yes.
So I never look down, there's no judgment. And I try to be that individual to help lift them up and say, hey, Mom, you can the grass is greener on the other side. And there is a light at the end of the tunnel.
Yes, there is.
So give us some sunshine. Sis.
Yes. So Victory Over Violence of Florida is my baby. And this nonprofit I started back in 2017, actually, October 2017, after visiting it was called Still Standing, Stepping Out, and Surviving. And it was an event in Atlanta that was put on by Tamiko Lowry, who ended up being my mentor afterwards. And it was for survivors of domestic violence. So I'm a survivor of domestic violence and a survivor of sexual assault. I was experienced date rape when I was in college and survived that. And then my first marriage ended up experiencing domestic violence. That was totally something unusual for me because I didn't grow up in that. Didn't grow up seeing violence between my parents. Didn't grow up in any type of situation like that growing up.
Yeah.
So it was unusual. It was uncomfortable, and it was hard for me to talk about. So when I attended this event, it gave me my voice. And so I came back with the desire to tell my story because people didn't even know. I was living back at home in Leesburg at the time when I attended this event. And so I hadn't really shared what I went through in college. I hadn't shared what I went through in my first marriage. So this event kind of gave me my voice. And so I came back and I started Victory Over Violence. I talked to Tamiko and asked her, how did you do this? What made you bold enough to do this? And she said, listen, there are so many women living in silence. And it was true because I hadn't even told my story.
Right.
And so she was like, you don't need a brick and mortar building to do this. You can help empower other women with your voice, just telling your story, being transparent. And she was like, you can do this. You can do this. So with her help, I created the very first summit. And the purpose of that summit was to share information. I had her to get up and tell her story.
Right.
I told a little bit of my story. And then I brought in Valerie Williams, who is the founder of Love Smart. So the three of us ladies put on the very first summit, which the summit was just to educate the community on domestic violence awareness,
right.
Educate on where to get help, who to call for help. And one of the things that hit home for me was I grew up a PK kid. I was a preacher's kid. So I grew up in church. That's not something we talked about in church.
Right.
Didn't talk about domestic violence, didn't talk about divorce, didn't talk about sexual assault, didn't talk about none of that kind of stuff. So one of the things Tamiko did at that very first summit was to teach the community on how to address these things. Like talk to the pastors about how to inform members of resources that are available and things like that. So that alone helped me just kind of confirm that this needs to be done, this needs to be said. So this organization was created to link people to resources. Mm-hmm. We are a liaison.
Right.
So we don't have a shelter, but I know where the shelters are.
Right.
I do not have therapists on staff, but I know where the therapists are. I know how to connect people to where they need to go, which is something I didn't know when I went through my trauma. Right. And so because of the hurt and the pain that I carried for so long, I wanted to be able to link women and children and men. Actually, I've had men come through to resources. Like, this is where you go. This is who you talk to. These are the things available. You don't have to stay.
Right.
You can get out, and there's people that can help you get out. Right. You don't have to go back. There's resources that can help sustain you until you can get on your own. I mean, just be that liaison. And that was the purpose, to help people. And I one of my slogans is to help people walk in victory one day at a time.
Wow, that's amazing. And something that you said is really been ringing a lot is your voice. A lot of times we don't realize the power of just speaking up, suffering in silence.
Suffering in silence.
We hear that a lot when it comes to domestic violence, right? And then sometimes we see the movies, oh, why don't you just leave? And, why they don't just walk away and just tell somebody? It's not easy to do.
It's not.
So when, you know that you have a circle and somebody there to support you, or you have resources that you really can go somewhere else, because when you're in that situation, whether it's verbal abuse, whether it's physical abuse, you are beaten down. You already have insecurities about yourself to even be in that space.
Right.
And even though you say you were not raised in that environment where, you had physical abuse, your parents, what have you, something happened. Something happened. And I know for myself, my mom was single, but she had boyfriends. We were seeing her fighting, and I know sometimes we were whisked away to other relatives' house. It was always something popping off.
Yes.
With the guys, like, what's going on?
Yes.
So I did witness that. I didn't have guidance on healthy relationships and what it looked like and how I should experience it. And I got into a relationship when I was very young, and the guy was older. So I had that, it was that verbal abuse. Like, he was more like the father for me, and you're going to do what I say do.
Yeah.
So that, again, you just feel like you're just shrinking. So to have someone finally give you that voice or that courage to say, okay, you got to take this.
Right. Exactly.
You know what I mean? And where do I need to go? And how do I get to, free myself and build my spirit so that I can, in fact, walk away? And then when you look back at the men or women that have put you through, well, I'm not going to say put you through, because, it goes both ways, because it's what we accept and allow as well, whether we're educated or not. But you look back and you say, wow, you got some issues.
Yeah, they got trauma too.
Yeah.
Unresolved trauma.
Yes.
Unresolved trauma. Yes. But for me, even with like you said, something happened. The reason why you allow yourself to be in that space.
Right.
And that's one thing through therapy and through kind of self-reflection,
self-work.
I had to realize I was molested as a child and had suppressed that memory.
See? Yes.
And so from that low self-esteem to going to college to being in that situation where the date rape happened because I wanted to have a boyfriend. I wanted to date. I wanted to go on a proper date. And that proper date led into rape. Wow. And it was just one of the things like, how did I get here? Like, why? And at the time, I didn't even think about it that way. It took years. So that self-work of now going through getting married, having children, going through a second divorce, and then having that time out of like, wait a minute, what's going on?
Right.
Like what's really going on?
Right.
And that time to reflect on it is to see I had all these unresolved traumas that was causing me to allow myself to be in those situations where I wasn't valued,
Right.
didn't know my self-worth, and all those things that come with that.
Right.
So a part of what we do in Victory Over Violence is we have these summits every year, and they have evolved to family education summits where we're bringing in the children and having separate sessions with them, and men and women, and having different types of speakers to speak about all these different traumas that affect us as adults,
Right.
the way we function and the way we accept certain things, rather than having enough self-love to say, I deserve better.
Right. Right. And because of the trauma, it's work. And a lot of us don't have the discipline to put in the work, or even the security to knowing that you have to do that self-reflection.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it can't be everybody outside of you.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes we got to check ourselves.
Exactly.
And people don't want to sit with themselves to do that.
No. I believe God loved me enough that he put me in a timeout that I didn't have a choice. And when I suffered my illness that I had to deal with, I didn't have a choice but to sit with me. Sit with me and be able to journal some of these things and write them out, which ended up being a book, but it was freeing.
Yes.
It was freeing. And it was so therapeutic.
It is.
To get it out.
I love writing.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's something I never thought I would get into, but it is. It's very therapeutic.
Yes, it is.
Yeah. So.
Yes, it is. Wow. Thank you for sharing that. So I know your work focuses on overcoming violence. What are some of survivors' biggest challenges, and how does your organization help them?
Returning to the abuser. Returning to the abuser is the biggest challenge. Wow. Yeah. That is the biggest challenge, returning to the abuser, whether it's for financial reasons, whether it's because he's retaliating, the kids, all those things can be reasons, but that's the biggest challenge is returning to the abuser. So I can have someone that can call me and say, hey, Lori, can you help so-and-so? I'll send you her information. I can get the contacts going, get the person involved, get the shelter involved, get the counselor advocate involved. They meet with them, bring them in, try to work with them, and probably 2 weeks later, if that long, hey, how is she doing? Oh, she left. She left. Yeah. He came and picked her up. Wow. You know, that kind of stuff. And it is heart-wrenching. Yeah. But that's the biggest challenge. And there are different reasons why people go back. Yeah. A lot of different reasons why people go back. And unfortunately, they have to get to the point where either they threaten to lose their children, which I've seen that. Right. And that kind of
wakes them up. Mm-hmm.
Like, I am not losing my kids. Or they get sick and tired of being sick and tired. Mm-hmm. For me, I left because I got sick and tired of being sick and tired. Yeah. I didn't have kids. I just got to the point where I was like, I'm tired of running. I'm tired of spending money at these little roach motels to get away. I'm tired of, having to go stay at a friend's house or hide or move my car or get another apartment and restraining orders. I got tired of it. Yeah. And so I didn't go back. But a lot of victims go back. Right. And that is the biggest challenge, trying to encourage them, educate them enough to say, listen,
you can do this.
You can do this. Or help them come up with a plan of how to get out, and them listen and realize I got somebody that's going to help me do this. But some of them don't have support. So they do go back. Mm-hmm. And then some of them get threatened. They get threatened that they're going to harm their children or their mother or something like that. So they go back. Yeah. So that's the biggest challenge is empowering the victims enough to say, listen, we're going to help you. There's people that will help you. You don't have to go back. Don't worry about the money. You could stay here, things like that. So I would say even to people that's telling people, you need to leave, girl. I don't know why you staying. Are you going to help them?
Right.
Are you going to give them somewhere to stay?
Right.
Are you going to protect them? Because if not, they're going to go back. And that's just the reality of it, you know. So we try to lay it all out there, you know. And they may go back, and if they call, we're gonna help them again.
Help them. Right. Because it is a process.
It is. It
is
is.
A process.
And they have to get to the point where they're ready.
Yes.
And I tell even my partners that help me with this, the other nonprofit partners, oh, well, she, you know, I say she ain't ready. She's not ready. If she's giving you all those excuses, she's not ready.
Right.
And you're just going to have to be there when she is ready. I don't see how you do this. You're going to have to just be there when she's ready.
Right.
That's just the nature of it. Because you never know when that time, it could save their life.
Yes. It could be a matter of life or death.
Because the most extreme time when usually victims are killed or when they're trying to leave.
Yes.
That is when it's the worst. So you can't not answer the call. For me.
Yeah.
At least for me.
That's true. That's true. Thank you. Thank you for being an advocate for women who have not yet found their voices. Mm-hmm. That's amazing. That's amazing. When I was going through my experience, I had was going to court back and forth. It was crazy. And they had a victims assistance. Yeah. And it was traumatizing I don't even like going downtown to this day because of, you know, just having to tell your story over and over again, you know. At the time, you know, I really didn't understand the legal aspect of it. He had got a lawyer and some other things had took place, you know, outside of just the abuse. I'm saying to myself, how could you defend somebody like this, you know? And you know, they play their part or what have you. But at the time, I was just finding my voice. But I was angry and I was emotional. You know, so when they was trying to do the deposition, he kept saying, "Will you get your client? Will you get your client?" And I was like, crying and, you know, telling my story and everything. And so I say all that to say I was, after a few years, a long time after, you know, finally got myself together and walked away. My family and I were coming back from South Carolina, 4th of July. And I get a call from Channel 8. Is this in the FI? And I'm like, yeah. And they said, do you know, I'm not going to say his name. And I said, yeah. And they said, did you hear the news? And I was like, no, what, you know, he just got arrested for killing his wife. That could have been me. We were married. Wow. And I had to pull over. Yeah. I was like, oh my gosh, that could have been me. You know, I got out and I had to have a procedure done. I was getting ready to go to my first state conference because I was an educator at that time. One of the, Lorinda Gamson is her name. I can say her name. She, I happened to call her. Well, she called me because I had to cancel. They were going to scholarship me to go to this conference, but I had to have a procedure done. And in the midst of all of that, she used to work at I think it's called the Spring. Spring in Tampa Bay. And she was like, I'm so proud of you. And I was like, huh? I'm calling her about we're talking about the conference. And she's like, I'm so proud of you. You know, you got out. And I was embarrassed because I was like, how did she hear that? You know, but it was in the news. They were coming to the house. They were calling me. They wanted to interview, but I didn't realize it was public knowledge. Oh yeah. All the, like you said, the daggone restraining orders, the restraining orders, and you know, the calling the police, and you know, all that is public record. Yes. So you know, they were like, you were married to him. What happened? What was it like? But you know, it was unfortunate that, like you said, it's when they try to leave because. The wife was already moved on. He climbed in their kitchen window and stabbed her to death while she was next to her partner. Yeah. And her kids was in the house. Yeah. So yeah. It's serious. It's serious. And the thing, that cycle, thank God you broke the cycle in your house. I did not want that cycle. Thank God I don't have girls. But
that cycle repeats. And at my very first summit, my uncle, who's like a father to me now that my dad's gone, he got up and told the story of my grandmother that none of us had ever heard. So the abuse started with her. And then my mom, her first husband.
Oh, wow.
And then my sister, my older sister. And then me. And I was like,
We're going to stop this right here.
No. We're going to talk about it and we're going to educate until we blue in the face.
Right.
We are not doing this.
Absolutely.
It is not okay.
Yeah.
It's not okay.
Yeah.
And I feel like I had to do that for my nieces and for my sisters that won't talk about it. And I needed to do that. And we're not going to, what goes on in this house, stay in this house stuff. People are dying from that.
Yes. So old school, but they do it.
Yeah.
And that's how our mothers were.
Yeah. I didn't know about my grandmother.
Yeah.
My mom never even told me. She told me about her abuse. She never talked about grandmother. So,
and my mother never even talked about the situations and everything that we witnessed. Yeah. We never had conversations afterwards. This is what this is what happened. No, never talked about it.
And you better not tell nobody.
Yeah, that's true.
Don't you go out this house and tell nobody.
And we held so much in.
Yes.
Because we didn't know how to express ourselves.
Yeah. So teaching people how to use their voice, that's new.
It is.
It's sad, but it's new.
It is. And I think with this, what do you call them, Gen Z?
Whatever we are now.
A, B, C, D, F, G generation. Yes. They just say it.
Yes.
They just say what it is. And, a lot of times I have one of those.
I have to, yeah.
And, you be like, did you just...
My oldest son.
Yeah. And it's just a matter of fact to be like, what? Just come right off and say it. And it's not... Sometimes it could be... they be right.
Yeah, it's not offensive, but it takes you back. Like, I would have
never said that. I would have never said that to my mother. You know what I mean? Really?
Yeah. It's truth though.
It is.
It's truth. And I'm okay with it with my oldest because he opens up in a way that I never was comfortable with my parents opening up.
Yes.
Especially being in a PK.
Right.
It's just certain things you didn't say, you didn't do, you didn't go,
Absolutely.
Everything was shut down.
Yes.
So there was no expression like that. And he just says it. I love it though.
You could appreciate it.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
The honesty and openness.
Mm-hmm.
It's wonderful. So funding is a huge part of running a nonprofit. So how do you balance financial sustainability while staying focused on your mission?
Well, for us, because we don't have a brick and mortar building, I don't have overhead.
Okay.
So I do not apply for the big grants. We do not apply for like big federal grants, big state grants, because there's a lot of oversight required with that. There's a lot of reporting required with that. And with me having a full-time career,
right,
I don't have time. And so one thing we decided in the very beginning of the organization, it was just me, my best friend, Nicole, who's my vice president, and my mom, who's treasurer secretary. And then I brought on some other board members over the last couple of years. But we decided not to go after the big grants. So we work strictly on private donations and fundraisers. So between the private donations and fundraisers, we're able to host our summits. We charge a fee for the summit, which allows us to raise money to cover like the catering. But everyone that participates in the summit, as far as speakers and providing education, all volunteers.
Wow.
Everything is volunteer. Everything is volunteer. What we charge for ticket price and for the vendors to be there at the summit, that covers our catering and our space.
How many times a year do you all have the summit?
Some years, twice a year, I'll do like a back to school one, which is focused on the youth, and then the main family one. But usually we have at least one a year.
Okay.
If the space allows, if someone allows us to get space, we'll have a youth one around July, August for back to school where we just focus. We partner with Love Smart, which focuses on middle school to high school age, and do something for the back to school kids. But other than that, the actual annual summit is usually in February or July.
Okay.
But the partnerships have been really helpful with managing costs too.
Okay.
The Love Smart, she's out of Brunswick, Valerie Williams, and her and I do. We also provide education in other countries. So we've been going to the Bahamas.
That's what I was going to ask you about. I know you all were asked to go to the Bahamas. How did that go?
Oh, it's gone great. We've gone 3 times.
Are you serious?
Yes.
I remember the first time they asked you guys to come out there.
Yes. So there is a young lady over in the Bahamas. Her name is Denise Major. And she has a nonprofit of her own that does AIDS awareness.
Okay.
Over in Nassau. She is friends with Valerie from Love Smart, and they allow us to go into the schools, the detention centers for the youth, and talk about self-empowerment, self-love, recognizing abuse and abusive relationships. So we've been able to do that at a detention center, and there's University of Bahamas over there has a U.S. corner, which is almost like a little embassy for United States citizens. So we're allowed to use that space. And we work with some of the guidance counselors and the teachers and some of the students there as well.
Wow.
Yeah.
Nice.
So our last visit, we were able to do a radio show there as well. So
nice.
Yeah. So right now it looks like we're gonna be going the end of the summer, and we're gonna actually do a women's retreat.
Oh, that's gonna be nice.
Yeah. So to be announced. Don't have the dates yet.
You gotta keep me posted on that one.
Yeah.
Okay. What's been one of the most rewarding moments in your journey with Victory Over Violence?
I would say, I thought about this. One of the most rewarding was I received from Tamika Lowry, who was the mentor that helped me get my voice. She honored me with an award in Atlanta.
Oh.
It was called Excellence in Collaboration Award. So since the time she got me going, she was watching me, paying attention to the events we were doing, paying attention to the people we were reaching, along with Valerie, who has Love Smart. After we partnered together, we've been everywhere. And then to be able to go international and still continue the work that we're doing in Florida and Georgia. So she honored me with the Excellence in Collaboration Award. And that was just like, wow, to be honored in that space, in the industry that we're in, that really no one really wants to be in that space.
Right.
But to recognize the work that we were doing and the work that I've been doing for Victory Over Violence was very rewarding to get that from her.
So when you're authentic about what you're doing, passionate, and it really comes from the heart, people see that.
Yeah. So it was sweet. It was sweet, and to be back in a place where for me it all started.
Right.
So
wow, and that start really impacted you and gave you that push to go forth and create change for others.
Yeah,
that's amazing.
So it was nice. It was nice.
That's amazing. Okay. Before we close, where can our listeners find you and connect with you to support you on your work?
So Victory Over Violence is on Facebook under Victory Over Violence of Florida, and it's on Instagram, and we have a website. So the website is victoryoverviolencefl.com. For my business space, as far as accounting, consulting, QuickBooks training, webinars, things like that I offer through my business, you can go to yournextcpallc.com, which is a website. I'm also on Facebook under Your Next CPA LLC.
Okay. Well, thank you so much. Y'all got a twofer today. I hope y'all enjoyed Miss Lori. I definitely enjoyed our time today. And
I have a gift for you.
You have a gift for me?
I have a gift for you. So one of the other close seconds when I say most rewarding.
We forgot to say that. You said that you were an author.
My book.
Oh, thank you.
So my book titled Free.
That's right.
Getting that published, I would say, would be the next most rewarding thing. And it wouldn't have happened without Victory Over Violence.
Oh.
And this is our mantra here.
3 daily truths. I am courageous. I am free. I am victorious. www.victoryoverviolenceflorida.com. Y'all see that? That's amazing. You keep doing this work. It's definitely needed in our community. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Oh, bye. To everyone listening, this is a space where diversity and innovation are created. If you'd like to be a guest or collaborate, I'd love to hear from you. Email me at AnnetteE05@gmail.com, or you could message me on Instagram at TrueGoddess14. Let's keep planting seeds, building relationships, knowledge, and understanding. Until next time, keep evolving.